Hares are small-sized animals belonging to the genus Hares. These animals are known to every person since childhood as weak and cowardly animals, although these definitions, animals have received quite undeservedly. In fact, hares are not entirely weak and not entirely defenseless as many people think. It is believed that hares are strong enough and in case of real danger can defend themselves. Hares represent the rabbit family, which, in turn, represents the hare family. This group should include not only hares and rabbits, but also pika. Hares can be easily distinguished from other animals by relatively long ears, too short tail, and long enough legs, so rabbits mostly move through long jumps. Hares are not large animals and do not have a powerful body. Only some of the adults grow to 67 centimeters in length and weigh about 7 kilos. The body of hares is small and kind of flattened at the sides, so it looks very thin and thin. Long ears of unique elongated shape are considered a distinctive feature of these animals. The length of the ears depends on the variety of hares, but they are never shorter than half the length of the head. Most varieties have ears that are pointed at the ends, and some species of hares, on the contrary, have rounded ears at the ends. The head of hares in relation to the rest of the body is small, and in shape it resembles an oval, which tends to narrow at one end. The lip is characterized by its rounded shape, and is divided into two parts by a characteristic groove. Important to know. The teeth of all representatives of hares have similarities with those of rodents, but there are some differences. They lie in the fact that the hare's family has two pairs of incisors on the upper jaw, with the front pair is much better developed than the back one. Rabbits' teeth, like those of rodents, grow throughout their lives, so they need to eat solid food components, so they can mature naturally. Large species of hares have hind legs almost a third longer than front legs, but in small species, they are almost the same. On the front legs of these animals, you can count 5 toes, but on the back legs, there can be 4 toes. The feet of these animals are rather long, and their soles are covered with wool. Claws are sharp and almost straight. This allows hares to defend themselves from predators and easily dig up snow in winter to get to various objects of sustenance, in the form of roots. Almost all species of hares have a relatively small pom-pom tail, and yet are almost invisible, no matter from which side you have to look at it. The body of these animals is covered with thick and soft fur. In this case, the fur covers almost all parts of the body. Even the inner surface of the lips has a narrow strip of fur. Hares can be quite varied in color. There are gray hares, brownish, and also a sandy shade. With the onset of winter, many species of hares change their coat color to white, which helps animals to perfectly camouflage themselves in winter. These land animals lack many skills. They are not swimmers and cannot climb trees or rocks. Prefer to live, depending on the species, forming colonies, and may lead an isolated lifestyle. Remain active throughout the year, so do not hibernate in winter. They mostly nocturnal, lying dormant during the day in dense grasses, bushes of vegetation or depressions in the ground. In winter they may lie in a shallow hole under a layer of freshly fallen snow. They move by great leaps, reaching speeds of over 60 kilometers per hour. It is believed that the sight of hares is not sharp, but their hearing and smell are excellent. Arctic hares are very cautious and wait-and-see tactics, hiding until the last moment. As a rule, the hare jumps out of a shelter suddenly, so the surprise factor comes into play, because a hunter or other predator simply doesn't have time to react in time. As a result, the hare runs away, remaining alive. An interesting fact. The hare, running away from pursuers, very skillfully confuses its tracks. He loops, makes long jumps to the sides, and can also run in the opposite direction on his own tracks. People consider hares as cowardly precisely because these animals suddenly jump out from under the feet of a passing man and, with all their might, dash away. In fact, this is not cowardice, but an opportunity to save their lives or, in other words, to survive in such difficult natural conditions. Still, the hare is not quite a cowardly creature, as many people think, and is quite capable of defending itself. If a hare begins to understand that it will not escape the pursuit, it lies on its back and begins to beat its pursuer with its hind legs, which are quite developed and muscular. His blows are so strong and precise that the pursuer can be fatally injured. Any hunter knows that it is very dangerous to lift a hare alive by its ears, because it can get several blows with its hindquarters, and it can be rather strong. It is believed that in the natural environment a hare can live an average of no more than 8 years. However, even such terms many of the animals do not manage to achieve, because they die much earlier, if not from the attack of predators, than from the shots of hunters. As a rule, many hares die, which, still defenseless against many, even small predatory animals. If hares are kept in captivity, they can live more than 10 years. It is quite difficult to distinguish a hare from a hare, especially since they do not differ in the color of the coat. As a rule, the female is somewhat smaller than the male. In addition, the shape of the head of a hare is more rounded, while that of a male is more elongated and compressed from the sides. The hare can be found on every continent except Antarctica. Even in the Arctic and Alaska, such species as the Arctic squirrel and the Alaskan hare are found. In the expanses of our country there are such species of hare as the squirrel hare, the mouse hare, the tolai hare, and the Manchurian hare. Depending on the species, hares inhabit different climatic zones, ranging from Arctic tundra to the humid tropics, including arid deserts and semi-deserts. Hares are found everywhere, both on the plains and in the mountains, at altitudes of up to 5,000 meters. The Arctic hare, for example, inhabits forested areas, while some other species prefer open spaces, such as steppes or semi-deserts. Hares, in comparison to rabbits, do not dig holes for themselves, but they may inhabit empty holes abandoned by other animals. As a rule, the majority of species prefer to live sedentary lives, but if there are problems with food in winter, they may migrate, but over very short distances. The basis of the diet of animals is vegetable food in the form of bark, young shoots, grass, berries, vegetables, and fruits. Hares inhabiting temperate latitudes prefer clover, dandelions, sedge, yarrow, and alfalfa. In summertime there is always enough food for them, as they can easily taste shoots and berries of blueberries, mushrooms, as well as fruits of wild-growing apples and pears. Important to know. Hares quite often appear in agricultural fields, orchards, and vegetable gardens. Especially in winter, they cause damage to cultivated plantations by nibbling the bark. If cabbage, carrots, and other garden life are left in the field, the hares will quickly pick it all up. With the onset of cold weather, the rabbits have to switch to bed food, so they start eating tree bark as well as annual shoots. During the harshest winter periods, hares retrieve various roots and withered grass from under the snow. Depending on climatic conditions, hares can reproduce up to 4 times a year. In colder regions, they manage to breed only one brood of hares, but in warmer regions, it happens much more often. In late winter and early spring, hares begin their first mating season. The mating season is characterized by males staging fights among themselves for the right to own the female. They can rise to their full height and box with their front paws. The one who wins starts running around the female, seeking the female's attention. During this period, the survival instinct of hares is turned off, and they almost forget about the danger, and may not notice the approach of predators. The female nurtures her future offspring for 26 to 55 days. At the end of this period, several cubs are born. Their number depends on habitat conditions, and may be up to 11 cubs.